Welcome back to Turf Talk, post-Triple Crown edition. Vance, all three now in the books, and I would say Nyquist, unquestionably the leader of the division after our 3 Triple Crown races.
I agree. Winner of the Kentucky Derby, tough luck third in the Preakenss after setting a blistering pace. Exaggerator had a chance to maybe go to the head of the division with the Belmont victory. He ran very poorly, very subpar. Nyquist goes into the big summer stakes at the top of this class.
Yeah, and Nyquist, Exaggerator, and Creator, the 3 multiple Grade 1 winners among the males. This year, Brody's Cause also has 2, but one of those was last year, and Nyquist has several last year as well. So for this year, it's the 3 Triple Crown winners. But Creator, no real performances as poor as Exaggerators. I mean, yeah, the Derby, he was 13th, but the Derby, a lot easier to give a mulligan. Just big field, stop, whatever. It's just easier to give a pass. Nyquist was 3rd in the Preakenss, so classic placed in addition to his classic win. So yeah, he's the leader. But any of the 3 Triple Crown winners, if they move forward in the second half of the year, can become the division leader. Anyone else, I would say, does have some work to do.
I agree, and even among the 3, I think Exaggerator and Creator have a bit tougher road ahead of them compared to Nyquist.
Right.
I think a race like the Haskell will set up really well for Nyquist. A big win there will keep him atop the division. Creator and Exaggerator likely will face off in the Travers at Saratoga over 1.25 miles. One of them is going to win it unless there's another dead heat, but so a loss to the other is going to knock them out of contention a little bit. And with the way Exaggerator didn't run well at Belmont this past weekend, the Jockey Club Gold Cup may not be on his schedule this fall. That takes away a potential, victory against older horses that would boost his resume a little bit. So at least going forward long term, I think Nyquist probably is in the driver's seat for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, should he win the Haskell, something we've seen from Bob Baffert trainees especially, but that does give him a 3rd Grade 1 win and sets him apart. But even without that, if the others just sort of beat each other and no one establishes themselves, he's the default leader as well. So, if Unified wins 1 and the Player wins 1 and Economic Model wins 1, that's just not going to be enough. So Nyquist in an enviable position for sure, but hopefully we will see him run against each other and have a fun fall. The older horses await as well, and we haven't seen the 3-year-olds take them on as much until the Breeders' Cup because of races like the Pennsylvania Derby, but certainly another older horse. We knew him last year, but now we really know him. The Met Mile is electrifying a performance as I've ever seen live, to be honest. Larry Colmus was practically breathless in the final 1/8 of a mile. Came back 109 on Brisnet. I don't mind to say a competing figure in this case because it's the fastest they've ever given, but Thorograph gave it a -8.5, which is out of this world. We'll see what happens the rest of the year, but certainly serve notice.
Yeah, it was a tremendous performance, jaw-dropping, especially coming off a modest performance in the Dubai World Cup. It was nice to see Frosted get back into the winner's circle. I'm just not quite convinced that a big victory in around a 1-turn mile necessarily means he's going to, run to that performance again or even come close, going 1.1 miles, 1.25 miles. Last year he was pretty well exposed as far as his 9 furlong, his 10 furlong abilities and such as that, and so as great as his Met Mile performance was, and as great as that was the kind of performance they were looking for as far as his stallion making abilities,
right,
as far that goes. I'm just not convinced it's going to translate. Thank you very much. Translate into a competitive performance over at Santa Anita for the Breeders' Cup, especially when you have to face Santa Anita-based horses like Beholder or California Chrome.
Right, yeah, and we know where he's against California Chrome in the Dubai World Cup. Last year, Keen Ice beat him in the Travers at 1.25 miles. He was right there with him at the Derby. Obviously, American Pharoah was better than him every time they raced against each other. So I do worry about that class level. And not, he, like you said, won the Met like you would want to see any horse win the Met, especially with that pedigree. But the horses behind him, no one's going to come out of that race and say, oh, second to Frosted. I mean, they sort of ran the race, you would think, and that's why they were 15 lengths back. But Anchor Down, Stanford, it's Upstart. I mean, these just aren't horses that we'd be talking about as favorites for Breeders' Cup races down the road. So the performance is what you want. I'm selling the notion that it was the fastest ever. I think Brissonet's probably more in line with what we'll see down the road, especially as he stretches out. But in that moment, it was great.
It was really, really great. And going back to your point on the quality of the Met Mile field, it was not up to even maybe last year's when you had Honor Code and Tonalist. So Frosted did catch a modest field, but he really beat them to a pulp, so to speak. So it was a performance to laud. It's just not one that I think is going to, like you said, necessarily translate into major success later this fall.
Liam's Map as well in that
Yes.
Met Mile. Tremendous renewal for sure. We'll close out, move into the lawn. Flintshire I thought was fantastic, ran to his odds certainly, and then a few days later, yesterday as we're taping this, Breeders' Cup Mile winner Tepin, a winner at Royal Ascot for the U.S., a special moment I thought for her and her connections to ship across all the challenges she faced and to get the job done in a race recently won by Frankel.
Yeah, I mean, she was running over a straight mile, a very soft turf course over there, not wearing her nasal strip, all these little small things that some of us kind of thought might halt her in her tracks. They really didn't. She showed tremendous guts and perseverance to win that. And Sid Fernando mentioned on Twitter, was like the first major victory in a major European mile in 50 years for an American-based horse. Hill Rise won the QE2 back in 1966. So the Yanks are back in England, pillaging the major mile races over there. Tepin, just a tremendous mare. I can't wait to see her come back over here and see what she does against the other boys.
Right, yeah, and this was her fourth start this year already, which, you know, for some champions with her credentials, she'd just be getting going for some trainers, and was fortunate enough to see Mark Casse before the Manhattan. He had worldly approval in there, and, you know, he was talking about Saratoga, Woodbine Mile, Breeders' Cup, so hopefully we're in for a treat on this when she gets back to the U.S., but one thing we didn't go over, something maybe more evergreen we'll get to, because we're out of time today, so think about this for next week, but the rabbit tactics with the Belmont, the race within a race, all that good stuff, certainly a good topic for Turf Talk, but wanted to highlight the Triple Crown and those great performances we saw over the last few days, so think about that for next week.
I will put it in the back of my mind.
All right, we'll join you then. Thanks.